Will Pickett is a partner at Carnstone, a management consultancy that specialises in sustainability and corporate responsibility. Will's interests lie in using data and technology to carry out these functions more effectively, designing data collection methods, developing practical tools, and presenting complex analysis that will engage a wider audience on worker issues. Please welcome Will.
Thank you for changing my name live as we go. As Martine said, my name's Will and I'm a partner at Carnstone. I'll save you a full spiel about what we do, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that might provide a little bit of context. We often engage with our clients' commercial teams, whether that's through developing responsible sourcing strategies or conducting workshops on various supply chain sustainability issues. We also play a bit of a convening role with groups of organisations interested in the same issues. For example, we run something called the Book Chain Project with a group of 27 publishers. This is really to develop tools and facilitate dialogue on the entire supply chain of printed books, from deforestation to labour standards in pulp mills to the chemical safety of finished products. So to me at least, as Henry kind of touched on, it's hard to come up with a full picture of what the future of responsible sourcing will look like. But I suppose after hearing the conversations happening over the past 2 days and through our work, there seems to be consensus that it'll generally involve a deeper involvement, I guess, of stakeholders beyond just dedicated responsible sourcing teams. And we think that technology can play some part in this, especially because it offers a way to change the way that information is communicated between these stakeholders and provides ways to open up new channels of communication that weren't there previously. So we've used this in our work. We've often found that the solutions that we've worked on have often just been quite simple and culturally relevant to the audience that we're looking to engage. I suppose they're quite broad and sweeping statements, so that'll be the end of that, and I'll speak to you about a couple of practical examples through our work. The first project that So the first project that I wanted to speak to you about is called Promising Future. It was set up to address concerns in brands' Chinese supply chains that workers weren't signing up to the Chinese government's social insurance scheme. For those not familiar with the scheme, it's essentially a safety net for all parts of working life. It covers sickness, workplace injuries, pension, maternity leave, and unemployment. So whilst it is, in theory, mandatory, there are multiple issues that mean that some workers aren't actually signed up to the scheme. One of the main barriers being that workers have a misconception about what social insurance is and its benefits, and workers often don't have the most up-to-date information about the scheme because government policies keep shifting. A common misconception made by workers really is that, especially those living away from their home province, is that they won't be able to transfer their benefits back to their home province when they retire or they move home. So really what we're trying to do with this project is promote social insurance to workers and clarify what the benefits are and why they should sign up. So we did this in collaboration with 10 brands, as well as the ETI. And the main component really, what it was all centered around, was the materials that inform the workers about the scheme. The main piece of content was a 12-minute video that we produced, which follows a factory worker in like a little mini drama. It shows her sort of deliberating with her friends and family the benefits of social insurance, this type of thing. And this video was really complemented by handouts, a website, so we could update articles when the policies change and provided policy updates. So then we use WeChat, I guess, to increase the audience and engagement of these materials. So I mean, WeChat's a bit like WhatsApp with loads more functionality, e-commerce, payments, but then channels as well, which is what we used, where users could then subscribe to certain channels and then follow updates. So we used our team in China. So we created a WeChat channel so we could regularly push out these materials to workers that signed up. This was generally done after sort of initial in-person factory engagement. Yeah, so it was really designed as a follow-up to keep this issue front of mind with workers. We used sort of posters up in the factories and in handout cards that we gave to workers. So when they scan the QR codes, which are pretty common in China, although not very common here, I guess, it automatically subscribes workers to the WeChat channel. So really, that was really our main method to push articles and videos and text messages and then surveys out to the workers. And we did have the option for some brands if they wanted to allow workers to communicate directly with the platform to ask questions. I suppose one other thing is that managers also subscribed to the channel, so it wasn't like we were communicating directly with the workers without any sort of oversight. So they could see everything that we were doing. So yeah, it allayed any concerns about that. So by using a existing platform, we were really able to go to where the workers were. WeChat has over 1 billion users, most of which are in China, and all we really need is a smartphone. So this is our progress so far with this. We've been into 129 factories. We have about 6,000 followers on the WeChat channel, and we've had about 8,000 views the video. It's probably some cat videos on YouTube have a higher view rate. We'd like to think that each view is a little bit more helpful. So we've found through our surveys that about 60% of workers tell us that they'd now like to join social insurance. So that was a project where we used an existing technology, I guess, to engage with workers. So now I'd just like to tell you about a project where we've created a new platform to deeply engage commercial teams in responsible sourcing. And it evolved out of a project that we did with M&S, where we designed a mobile-friendly PDF guide, which provided non-ethical trade staff with an overview of responsible sourcing principles. It gave tips on how to spot poor workplace practices and standards and possible human rights issues whilst these staff were out visiting factories, and what to do if such issues were spotted. So I suppose the premise of the idea, the initial idea and then what we've come to do now, is that commercial teams, and by commercial teams I kind of mean buyers, QA, tech, merchandisers, anyone kind of visiting factories on a regular basis. These teams are visiting the factories far more than any dedicated responsible sourcing teams are. And we do know that there's some two-way communication between these teams. We know that ethical trade teams tend to run workshops and sessions with their teams. And we do know that some of these staff do provide feedback about factories to the ethical trade team, though this might be slightly ad hoc, and it might be just a few of the good buyers, say, that are doing this. I suppose the real issue is with this current setup is that these commercial teams may not necessarily have a trained eye to spot such issues. Especially if they've only had limited or one-off training, or their training that they had was 12 months ago. They also might not know what to do or even articulate what they feel uncomfortable about when they visit the site. They're usually busy people, so I guess spotting and reporting such issues might fall off their radar if they're not prompted. So this is what we set up with our project called Everyone's Business, which is really aimed at helping to strengthen this two-way communication channel between buyers and their ethical trade staff. And sorry, by buyers I do mean QA, tech, merchandisers, these type of things. So what it really does is it gives the commercial teams the tools they need to sort of understand the key issues, but also introduces a structured feedback mechanism for the commercial teams to provide feedback on these sites to their ethical trade teams. So that's what it is, I suppose. Yeah. So we've teamed up with M&S, Next, Pentland, and Sainsbury's to develop this. But I suppose that's not overly tangible. So it's essentially a progressive web app for smartphones. A progressive web app means that you don't download it from the App Store, you just access it directly from the internet browser, really. The users of the app will be commercial teams at participating brands. It'll include interactive content about ethical trade issues and what to look out for. And then it will allow commercial teams, or contributors as we're calling them, which is a bit more of a catch-all term, to contribute their feedback directly through the app. The ethical trade teams can then see and use this data created to create an understanding of which supplier sites might be out of line with their responsible sourcing principles. As one of our brands put it, everyone's business will enable hundreds of mini, unannounced ethical trade checks done by colleagues within their own organisations, really. Might be worth adding that the project's been developed with non-food and fashion brands. However, we're designing it to be a little bit more general than that. In terms of how it actually works, if you're using this app going to a factory, the first thing you would do is create a new visit. You would, visit log essentially. So the system has all of the brand supplier data within it. Obviously, if you're from Sainsbury's, you will only see Sainsbury's supplier sites, which makes it easier for you to find them, but also protects any potentially confidential information. And if it's a supplier site, a prospective site, then you can also they can also add the details manually themselves. So from there, what we've done is we've created some sort of country guides, which gives a bit of an overview as to what the issues are in that particular country that they're visiting. So we look at known worker issues and we pull out some key issues that we want people to sort of know about. But then we also provide economic and political context, and then some media stories which kind of show that the issues aren't abstract and they may actually be affecting the suppliers that these people are visiting. So then I suppose we get to the main part of the app, which is the guided questions. And this is where contributors are prompted to share their observations about the site. So we group questions into 3 sections. The management, which is sort of asking questions about how the factory is being run. I think on the slide, it's sort of prompting to a question about potential subcontracting. The second section is on workers, asking about whether workers seem okay, whether there's any evidence of young workers or poor treatment of workers. Then the third section is about the facilities themselves, about whether it's fit for purpose from a hygiene and safety perspective. We really use the brands, the 4 participating brands, to develop these questions. They're really shaped by them and their in-house expertise, also by the ethical trade teams, but also by their commercial teams as well. So we eventually reached consensus of about 18 questions. That's 6 per section, I guess. They're all yes or no answer questions with the ability to skip questions that you don't think are relevant. So yeah, all in all, it should take about 5 to 10 minutes. Per visit log, I guess. They're also structured in a way, as hopefully you can see, if you can see that on the slide, that's an example. All the questions they're in plain English. We've really tried to steer away from any kind of audit style language. Firstly, because this isn't in place of an audit, this is sort of something that's complementary to it, if you like. But also because we wanted people to really engage with the app, and we thought that if people think it's sort of an audit, they might kind of see it as not their job. And then finally, we've included some additional little tips of things to look out for to try and make it a little bit more visual and engaging. There's also, if contributors want to engage further, they're also able to upload some images and provide sort of qualitative feedback. So I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, this is really a way for contributors, people visiting factories all the time, to provide feedback into the app. But we also see that the questions are almost a training point in themselves. After a few visits, you can imagine if you can kind of memorize and internalize the questions, then you're more equipped to be able to engage on this agenda, really. So I suppose after the visit logs come in, it's really a question of what the ethical trade teams sort of do with this data. First and foremost, it's a good way to notify the ethical trade team straight away of any concerns. So that they can follow up and take whatever action they need to take based on the feedback. The second one is, as we start to get more visit data through, we can start to aggregate it and compare and contrast with other sources of information, audit, SAQ, these type of things, which can help really prioritize where they spend their resources. We also envision that as more visit logs come in, it will shed some more light about broader trends, possibly at the country, regional, or product category level, which can also help to inform decision making and act as an input into understanding how buyers are engaging or how commercial teams are engaging with this agenda. So we've been through beta testing earlier this year, and we're just now piloting it with our 4 brands, and we hope to launch it internally in next month. And we're continuing to learn and we're continuing to improve, and hopefully we can bring it on board with some others in the future. So that's the two projects that I wanted to share with you today. I suppose, as you've probably seen, neither of them are overly high-tech or purely technological solution. Both still have loads of engagement face-to-face, which is complemented by an online component. For everyone's business, we see that there's still a need for sort of initial training and comms, as well as follow-up when people do start to flag potential issues. For the Promising Future WeChat channel, it's often useful for following up and keeping the content that we want to get across front of mind after just one-off initial engagements. The second thing is that we really see these platforms that are inherently collecting data because they're digital. It really helps us to measure impact more effectively. So for everyone's business, we can measure the number of active users, visits, issues being flagged, which can really help manage risk and sort of measure engagement. So I suppose that's pretty much all I wanted to share with you today. If I was pinned to answer the question, I guess, about contribute something to the answer to the question that we've had today, it would be that I think the future will be about continuing to sort of tinker with and figure out the best ways to communicate responsible sourcing information between different stakeholders. And we see the use of existing platforms and potentially new online platforms as a way to increase this engagement and involvement outside of dedicated responsible sourcing teams. Thank you.